Joan has been the longest running host ever in early morning television. She was a co-host of Good Morning America for nearly 2 decades. 2 decades. She's an award-winning journalist, a best-selling author, a health and wellness advocate, international speaker, and a mom of not 1, not 4, not 5, but 7 children. After getting breast cancer, she made it her mission in 2014 to educate women and inspire others about breast cancer prevention, treatment, and survival. And she did this by journaling in her journey on her website, looking for ways to promote change, to advocate for other women, other survivors, people who are pre-vivors, survivors, and caregivers on Capitol Hill. Through her journaling, Joan realized she had an opportunity to really share her journey with other people and transform the effect it would have on them, as it has given life to others, and it will give people life through her new book she's working on. So Joan recently launched a network called Alive. It's a beautiful network that will be coming out soon. But she has an amazing Facebook page where she shows people, she shows other survivors on her page, and people can share what they're going through and what their legacy is, and they're real women sharing real stories that you can feel and touch and feel like they're your own. They're like women that you know. And because of who she is, and she's using this platform to get to other people, that people are loving it and getting to connect with her and share, and it's just so powerful, and I want to applaud you, Joan, for what you're doing. But the platform's just for people living with breast cancer and surviving breast cancer. It's the first of its kind that I know of, and I'd like to welcome her to give our closing speech today. Joan, thank you.
I'm happy to be here. Actually, after this past year of my life, I'm just happy to be here, period. 1 year ago, I went for a mammogram like I had done every year for 2 decades, and I got a clean mammogram, and then I walked across the hall and had my ultrasound, and I heard those words that no woman wants to hear: you have cancer. And I was diagnosed with stage 2 triple-negative breast cancer. My gynecologist had actually told me to make sure to get the 3D mammogram, that was definitely worth the money even if it was out of pocket, which it is. But he did not recommend that I get the ultrasound. No doctor had ever recommended that I get an ultrasound. I had never been told anything officially about having dense breasts. However, as a journalist, thank goodness I was sent 6 years ago to do an interview with Dr. Susan Love, who wrote the breast book. And, while they were changing batteries on the camera, we were kind of chit-chatting. And, of course, Dr. Love, I don't know if any of you know her, but she said, "You do get your mammograms, right?" I said, "Oh, yes, I do." I said, "But they're always so nerve-wracking because they're always calling me back in, and then you get all scared and you say, 'What, you see something?' And they always say to me, 'No, it's because we can't see anything. You have such dense breasts.'" And with that, she said, "Wait a minute, don't you also get ultrasounds?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, if you have dense breasts, then you need to also get an ultrasound." And thank goodness Dr. Susan Love is the force that she is, because I came right back and I told my gynecologist, I need an ultrasound. Dr. Susan Love told me I also need an ultrasound. And he said, "Fine." And he wrote me the prescription. But I got to tell you something. If it hadn't been for that interview, I would have walked in to that mammogram that day, and I could have easily walked out thinking that everything was perfectly fine when I had an aggressive, fast-growing tumor in my right breast. As far as I'm concerned, that interview saved my life, and now it's my turn to pay it forward. I will tell you that after 9 months of treatment, 16 rounds of chemotherapy, and surgery, and 6 weeks of radiation, I am now officially a survivor. I had my first clean mammogram and ultrasound earlier this week. I got the first clean one. But I think it's interesting that sometimes out of life's most challenging journeys come our most inspired opportunities. And my breast cancer battle kind of gave me this unexpected reconnection to my past, because a few days in, I started thinking about the fact that my dad was a cancer surgeon. I grew up in a home where everything was dedicated to the fight against this disease. However, my dad was also an avid private pilot. And he used to fly all over the country and speak at different cancer conventions. And when I was 13, he was coming back from a cancer convention. I lived in Northern California. He'd been down in Southern California, and he crashed and was killed. And he was only 51 years old. And I was always in awe of my dad. I thought I would grow up to be a doctor for sure. Then I did a short stint in a hospital. Yeah, I found out pretty quick that scalpels and stitches were probably not going to be part of my future. But all of a sudden, because I decided to go public with my journey, I all of a sudden realized that I could pick up where my dad left off. I mean, he had so much work left to do and so many lives to save, and all of a sudden I had an opportunity to carry on my dad's legacy. And frankly, I've never been given a more important assignment. And as I've shared my journey, I've heard from thousands and thousands of women from all over the country. I was amazed at the response on social media and into my website. They have shared with me their stories and their frustrations and all of the difficulties that they come up against in trying to access health care and get their screenings and get the treatment that they need and that they deserve. And many of the women reaching out to me after hearing my story about going for that mammogram, many of them said that they were hearing about breast density for the very first time. They'd never heard of it before. They didn't realize that they could walk in and get a mammogram and walk out thinking that they were fine when they really had breast cancer. And many of them had no idea that vital information was collected at every one of those mammograms that was not being shared with us. Information that could be life-saving. And I have heard from so many young women. It's been shocking to me how many young women contact me and they tell me about how tough it is for them to even get a doctor to listen. That doctors say, this can't be breast cancer, you're too young to get breast cancer, don't worry about it, come back in another 6 months. Others tell me that they had a clean mammogram, but that they felt something, and they suspect that they have cancer, but that they can't get the insurance to pay for an ultrasound. And quite often, they can't afford to pay for that ultrasound. These are women doing their best to be their own best health advocates. They're the ones really trying. I mean, how do you cut down the health costs in this country? How about finding cancer in stage 1 instead of stage 4, where it costs exponentially more to take care of that person, and all too often that person will lose her life. We know how important early detection can be to surviving breast cancer, and those kinds of delays can be very deadly delays. You know, throughout this journey, I've had an opportunity to meet some just amazing women who have been able to do extraordinary things with their voices. Certainly Mema, and our leaders like Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, you know, out there on the front lines creating the laws and changing laws in order to protect women. And I am very proud to join their voices because women must be given every available resource from screening and education to treatment in order to make their own best health care decisions. Because only when we're fully informed can we make life-saving decisions. And every time I read another message from a woman about her struggles and her fears, whether it's not being able to afford or access a screening, or to be able to get her drug treatment, or to be able to afford her drug treatment, or to simply be alone. Be alone and not be able to get a ride to her chemo treatment. I am reminded by each and every one of these women, how much they need our help. They need our voices to be their advocate. And if I've learned one thing from this last year, it's never to underestimate the power of the individual voice. And together, as I said to Mema yesterday and the Congresswoman, and together we can really raise a lot of hell. And consequently bring about change. And all of us who have been through this battle, who have been through cancer treatment, we're very well aware of how important all of the advocates are. From being able to raise funds for research, to doing educational outreach, to legislating. And of course, we depend on our congressional leaders to leave, everybody here today, leave and go back and have your conversations so that they will change laws where necessary and protect the health and the lives of American women. I will tell you that I am seeing some change being made. Recently, one of my girlfriends went for her breast exam, went for her mammogram, and she got in there and she said for the very first time, she saw a sign, a big, big pink sign in the waiting room. And the sign said, "When your mammography is performed, aside from checking for any changes or abnormalities, we are checking for how dense your breast tissue is. And if you are 75% dense, a screening ultrasound will be recommended. Please feel free to ask questions." So she went in, and as they were performing her mammogram, she happened to mention that she really was interested in finding out her breast density. Well, she said with that, she heard in an exasperated tone, "Yeah, you and every other woman now that Joan Lennon was bald on the cover of People magazine." But I will not apologize for any inconvenience to any radiologists, for informing women and empowering women to better understand their breast health and advocate for their best care. I am proud to let my voice be joined with Mema's to make sure that as a mom of 7, and believe me, no matter how many presidents I've covered here in Washington, it's always the 7 kids that get the oohs, the ahs, and the applause. But as a mom, and as a mom of 5 daughters, I join with Mema in reminding everyone how important it is for us to teach our daughters, for all of us to help empower that next generation of young women so that they will be educated, so that they will be proactive, and so that they will know how to fight for their best health and their best breast health, so that perhaps they don't have to go through what so many of their moms have gone through. This journey has been challenging. However, this journey has helped me to find my voice. And for that, I am so grateful. Thank you all.